Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Gay2k, a podcast for nostalgic millennial queers. I'm Sarah, and today I'm going to be joined by my good friend John Paul. John Paul was really the first gay friend I ever made. We talk a little bit about that, but we spend the majority of our time discussing the film Hedwig and the Angry Inch and how it affected our gender performance and informed our gender identities. Hedwig and the Angry Inch is a 2001 John Cameron Mitchell film about an East German immigrant who had a botched sex change operation. It follows Hedwig's story through their journey into America and their time falling in love, and there's a lot to discuss with Hedwig. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Gay2k. I'm Sarah, as always, and today I'm excited to introduce you to another one of my besties, John Paul.
Hello, it's so exciting to be here. Oh my gosh, this is like the good old days. Wow, this is really Gay2k live and in the flesh. So really excited to be here.
Yeah. So John Paul and I met in high school, pretty much quickly became best friends, and then over the course of 3 months came out to each other.
Yep.
Kind of a whirlwind there. And yeah, been friends and in touch ever since. So yeah, let's get into it. What's Gay2k for you, John Paul? What are some queer pop cultural influences of the 2000s?
Well, I'd start by saying you. No, just really reflecting back on just, our friendship and just that early 2000s. I think that your friendship was one that really like is my origin story, is what like started me in the path that I'm on now.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, um, I just remember, yeah, coming out to each other and can I say names of people? Are we going
You
there? Are we...
can. You can. If
Oh
they
no,
hear, yeah, yeah, whatever.
so yeah, no, and like came out to each other and on my 16th birthday in Katie Spickett's basement, and so I think we were both really struggling at that time with,
Hmm.
oh, what is our relationship to each other? And like, I really
Yeah.
like this person and I'm really enjoying hanging out with them, but I'm gay, and so
Yeah, right. And
I
I was still at that time, well, I had come out to a few people as like bi, but I definitely like didn't really feel that way. Just kind of like I was like, well, yeah, but then you and I started hanging out, and lots of people were like, "Are you guys dating?" And we were like, "What? Why would we?
yeah, no, and I think
What?"
it's just, looking back on like, because we were kids, like we
Hmm.
we just started like and we're like talking about gay things and like, oh, gay people, what do you think about them, and
Do you
not really
remember the piercing stereotype conversation
no,
about
remind me.
tongue piercings? And one some girl that we were hanging out with theater, I don't even remember who it was like, they say the girls that get their tongues pierced do it because they want to give,
Okay, now yeah.
BJs to guys. And I was like, I don't think it has to be exclusively about oral sex with guys. And then you, at the same time I said that, said, I could see myself getting my tongue pierced.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, because like just you telling me that, I'm like, I forgot that story. Like, oh no, like I remember those moments of like discovery when just talk about, oh, desires. Like actually this is what I would want. And so yeah, no, that's no, I love high school. I love the community that we had, and really like I always find myself trying to replicate that. Like, oh, this is my crew, and this is, we could take on the world, and we were the gay mafia. We did that in high school. And no, yeah, no, it's so when I think of Gay2k, I think of us. I think of speaking like specifically, like I guess like when it comes to media, uh for me, I kept going back to Strangers with Candy. That to me was very queer
Mm.
culture, Amy Sedaris. And so for me, like when I think of representation, at that age, I wasn't thinking about like, oh, I need to see gay people on TV. It was more, I need to see alternative. I need to see different. I need to see weird.
Yeah.
And kind of through that, then I, discovered queerness. And I just remember Stranger with Candy, like there was the two teachers that were secretly in love, Stephen Colbert and Paul Dinello.
Yes.
And I just remember like being a kid and be like, oh, they're gay, right? Everybody gets that, right? Like, of course, no, yeah, duh. But just really like, and that, really kind of just set what my sense of humor was, and
Hmm.
just really, I think, continue to broaden my horizons on like, oh, well, then how can I continue to go on this list? Let me like, oh, who's John Waters? Who's these
Hmm.
other comedians that are doing subversive things through which could be seen as a queer lens. So, uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure too. And remember our like B-rate horror film kick too? Like not necessarily queer, but definitely that like fringe otherness, like this is weird and people find it weird, but we love
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think that's, I think as I reflect on just like, what it means to be queer, LGBTQ is that, uh, sometimes you are identified as the monster. And so like, you
Hmm.
don't want this definition. And I think that's sometimes why we seek that out, where it's like, oh, let me see this, this story. How do these people get through this situation? How like seeing people put in compromising situations so that we can discover how do we
Hmm.
do that in our own lives. So.
Right. Yeah. If they can survive a horror film, we can survive 10th grade.
Yeah, we can
Easy.
survive being gay and 15. So yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, yeah, like in terms of like when I think about it, like what we were doing with culture, I think a huge part of our culture too was indie music. And
Hmm.
like when I think about like how rare it was that we had such a thriving like music environment and we could go to like $5 concerts like regularly. Like I know a lot of, and I don't know if that was just like our parents trusted us too much, and we were really good kids, so they had every
Hmm.
reason to trust us, so we weren't doing drugs in the bathroom or anything like that. We were
Yeah.
literally there for the music.
Yeah, yeah.
But like how rare that that kind of experience is like, oh yeah, I saw this band, especially when I'm talking to people that aren't from Omaha. I'm like, oh
Mm.
yeah, I saw, Modest Mouse twice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw Rilo Kiley in the basement of Sokol Underground,
Yeah.
and no, definitely I think that was very formative in just like my sense of like self-identity, and so yeah, not really like I can't really apply like a queer lens to it, because when I reflect, I'm like, oh no, these were heterosexuals, singing about their lives. But again, we think about like performance and this idea of, oh, but they're putting it out there, they're talking about it, they're explaining, and they're using metaphor, they're being poetic, and I think that's what drew me to like really like the I guess like the Saddle Creek scene, was that it was in my city, and it
Mm,
was it was good music, and it was like, oh,
right.
actually, like this is quality. This is like no one else is really putting it out like, Bright Eyes or
Right.
Cursive or The Faint were doing. And
Mm,
just I'm really fortunate, like I've stayed been in Omaha, born in Omaha, stayed here, and have kind of I find myself adjacent to that scene now, like
yeah.
accidentally, to where like, oh, people that like I grew up like idolizing, like I'm friends with now. And it's
Yeah.
and it's because I've, learned to like live as my true authentic self. So it's like, oh, this journey for me to get here started back when I was a teenager, like listening to indie rock. And now, the things that I get to do in the city, like I feel built upon that beginning history.
Yeah. Okay, well, today I brought John Paul on to talk about the film Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Um, do you remember the first time you saw this movie?
Oh wow, I that was so I've been really racking my brain, because for me Hedwig is I remember times I've seen it. So I'm like, oh, I watched it this time, this time, this time, this time, but I can't
Hmm.
like I think it grew on me as I just continued to like investigate it and look at it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I really can't think of like the first time watching it, but I can start to piece together like I think really finding the music first.
Hmm.
Um, because this just came out in 2001. Well, the film did it. The play was before that. So
Hmm.
this film by John Cameron Mitchell came out in 2001, and it wasn't on my radar. I didn't think about it, being what, 13 at this time. I wasn't
Yeah.
looking for this. And even if I did, it was too adult for me. I was definitely like, I'll look at that later. And so it was really around like again like talking about this like indie music
Hmm.
vibe that we were on. I really think I discovered it through Rufus Wainwright's cover of Origin of Love. So there was a tribute album that came out in 2003, and it features a bunch of great artists like Polyphonic Spree, Robin Hitchcock, Stephen Colbert, again, another mention, was on there too. And so yeah, just as I oh, it's all piecing together. So like indie rock looking like, oh well, who's gay, right? How can I find someone who's gay? So then Rufus Wainwright, right? And
Hmm.
so discovering him and then discovering this cover of Origin of Love and then be like, this is a really good song. What's I want to know more. And then going into the
Yeah.
Hedwig music. So yeah, I probably didn't
Yeah.
start watch this until like 2004, 2005, I'd say.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out like when I would have, because my memory, surprise, is similar to your memory, that I remember listening to Origin of Love and knowing that song way earlier than I watched the film. I remember listening to the soundtrack more than I watched the film.
Again, like these different levels. So it's like, okay, I discovered Hedwig as music, right? And then I'm a theater kid, right? So I'm getting really into musicals. So I'm gonna watch
Hmm.
all the musical movies and like, oh, let me circle to Hedwig. There's a movie. And
Hmm.
so yeah, I really like well, I think of, our mutual friend Allie, who I I just remember driving around in her car listening to this, but I can't place it in the timeline. I'm like, what?
And that's, yeah, I remember people watching it around me in college would be like, "Have you seen it?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I've seen it." And like watching bits and pieces of it multiple times throughout my college experience. But I think I've only sat down to watch the whole film like maybe three times, which is crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. um, yeah. So like I've watched it. I watched it like when Courtney and I first started dating, and then I watched it like whenever we were young. I know we watched it sometime in high school, or I know I
Hmm.
watched it sometime in high school, and then yeah, just recently. So I really think I only have those three times of like being like I'm watching Hedwig the whole film all the way
Yeah,
through.
yeah. No, yeah. I feel like it's I think its importance and relevance has just continued to grow as,
Mm-hmm.
just time continues. And so, yeah, I think, yeah, because I have these early memories of it, and then I have it, revivals where it's just like, oh, like in 2018, when I started Queer Night with some friends, this was one of the inspirations for like, oh, what does this mean? What does queer identity mean? What can we look to kind of like guide us in like, oh, how do we communicate this? What's our language?
For sure.
Well,
But
actually, and I think like, I'm sure we'll get into the conversation, but like Hedwig as itself isn't perfect, and I think
mhm.
that's the whole point of the thing, and I
Yeah.
think that this work can evolve and should evolve and, you know, talking about like trans representation and like, oh, here's our big Broadway moment, Neil Patrick Harris, and I'm like, we like John Cameron Mitchell did that. He already did that version. We already did that narrative. We need to take it into the next space. And so there's always time or opportunity for that. I think revive
Hmm.
Hedwig today. So
Right. Yeah. So we can go into discussing the film, starting at the beginning. Yeah, go ahead. Do whatever you want to say about it from the beginning of
yeah.
the film. I'm going to let you steer the ship here.
Well, we'll just give it into some like give you some basics so you just know what we're dealing with. Hedwig and the Angry Inch was written, directed by, and starring John Cameron Mitchell. You might know John Cameron Mitchell. He's has a really funny role on Girls, if you've seen that. He was just in Shrill with Adie Bryant, and so he
Hmm.
does things. He's been around, and his
Short
beginning was
Bus, too.
Short
The
Bus, yeah.
film Short Bus. Yep.
Um, and so like he was just a theater actor, theater kid doing things. He was in uh, you know, uh just on Broadway. Like he was just a Broadway actor, not just a Broadway, but you know what I mean. So he had the immense experience to really create a work of art, in my opinion. And so it started as a stage play, and he wrote the text, but the lyrics, and so this is another thing, like we can talk about, oh, John Cameron Mitchell, he did this. Well, I'm like, well, the lyrics, which for me really slap, like Stephen Trask.
Hmm.
Um, and so, they worked together, they did this off Broadway, and then the film came out in 2001. And yeah, just, really just talking about, different ideas of gender identity, gender performance, relation to place, because Hedwig travels a lot. And so I think John
Hmm.
Cameron Mitchell is just hitting on a lot of these queer themes, I think, before we really had words for them, right?
Hmm.
So I think when I think of, Gay2k, Gay 2000. So what are these pieces that are showing us, oh, this is a new way, this is a new path forward, and
Hmm.
so yeah, that's kind of I think the
Yeah. So Hedwig, the story of Hedwig is a the Google summary of the story of Hedwig is that an immigrant who had a botched, transsexual operation is performing in America against the tour of her ex-lover in order to kind of compete with that tension,
mhm.
which is such a simplification of what the
Yeah,
film
yeah, yeah, yeah.
is. But obviously, we do have to talk about the transsexual procedure of it. The literal namesake of the film is that
Hmm.
Hedwig underwent a transsexual operation, a sexual reassignment surgery, if you will, for those who speak the actual terms and not Google's. Um, yeah, and it went wrong, right? For whatever reason, there's a whole song kind of explaining what's
Hmm.
going on, but instead of um, a complete general genital a complete genital construction reassignment surgery, Hedwig winds up with a phallus that is an inch long instead of going
Hmm.
under vaginoplasty. So that is a huge part of her identity, as it would be anybody's.
Hmm.
And so that's it. Yeah, that's the namesake of the story.
Yeah.
But the story is about so much. It's about her um, current husband, who is played by a woman. And I love that part of it. That
Mm.
is it Ishtek? How do you
Yitzhak.
Yitzhak? Yeah,
Hmm.
man. I don't even. I tried to. So yeah, Yitzhak,
Uh-huh.
who is a male character played by a woman, but is actually a trans character. And I think that way of doing it, the like woman in drag playing a man becomes trans, is incredibly interesting because usually when
Hmm.
we see women playing trans characters, it's always post gender reassignment surgery. It's
Hmm.
always they are, um, you know, past the state of any type of male appearance when we
Hmm.
meet them in the story. And so it is very, very different. I can't think of another example where we see that uh, a cis presenting woman
Hmm.
performing in drag, and then like underneath is their real self coming out throughout the whole film, right? So
Yeah. That's what I really like about just John Cameron Mitchell's performance and Miriam Shore, who originated the role of Yitzhak, and so they were able to then do the film. Um, and so like this gender performance on gender performance to where people, so it's like you really don't know where they're at in this journey. Like, oh, like and kind of just giving the diving more into the story of Hedwig. Like, it starts off and Hedwig is from East Berlin, right? And so where it's the middle of the Cold War, and so Hedwig's mother decides to move into communist East Berlin, and so
mm-hmm.
Hedwig is growing up in a very repressive environment. One of the early scenes suggests that Hedwig was molested by their father, that Hansel. So at this time, we meet Hansel and or Hansel, as mother says. So Hansel and mother and father, they live in East Berlin, and mother kicks the father out. So a mother who is Hedwig. So we have Hedwig the mother. She kicks out the father, and so then Hansel is kind of just like left on his own. And you really see it's kind of setting up this binary system, this dichotomy. We have East and West, man and woman,
Mm-hmm.
and it is set during the Cold War. So what I really like about looking at this from like a historical lens. Hedwig talks about like, oh, we were watching American Forces Radio, and they were talking about Jesus, and
Mm-hmm.
and so and I think Mother, she's a Nazi, and so Hansel is like, oh, Jesus died for our sins, and Hedwig the mother goes, and so did Hitler,
Yes.
and just this idea that she talks about absolute power corrupts. Better to be powerless, my son. And so for me, that
Mm-hmm.
sets this like oh, when you know what then happens to Hansel, Mother said this from the beginning, better to be powerless. So like this idea
Mm-hmm.
that you have to, you know, give
Yeah,
something up. You shouldn't have it all. Um, to me,
I
it's like,
do. Yeah, I do really love that conversation about Hitler and Jesus as a parallel to the Tommy conversation about Jesus that
mm,
comes later, and we can talk about
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like the what is Jesus into how that informs you, and how Jesus can mean such different things for different people based on where they are,
Mhm.
right? Like that part of the film is definitely one of the first times I would have seen that kind of
Yeah,
perspective of like, here's this Nazi who is like, Hitler died for our sins. And, like, and then it's like on the other side, it's like, yeah, yeah, it's so
yeah.
interesting.
And I, just thinking about like its Cold War influences, this idea of like American ideology. How do we spread this to Europe? And um,
Mm-hmm.
so not only is Hansel learning that Jesus died for our sins, he's also listening to rock music. So he's getting this diet of American rock. And I do have the script in front of me. So
That's amazing.
oh yeah, no, I bought this like so many years ago because it's like it was at a Barnes and Noble at Westroads. Um,
Oh, nice.
but let me find the part. No, yeah, just he talks about like who he listened to, Tony Tennille, Debbie Boone, Anne Murray, Iggy Pop, David Bowie. So you have young Hansel who he sleeps with his head in the oven because the kitchen is so small, there's nowhere for them to go. So he's listening to
Mm-hmm.
this music, and I think, talking about, you know, how music informs us, makes us who we are. This is, this American ideology, this way of
Yeah.
living is being broadcast. And so, um, how does that inform Hansel's life, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um, and then we kind of flash forward a little bit more to Hansel is out sunbathing in the nude, and is American soldier comes upon
Yeah.
this young boy naked in the rubble, and it's in the movie. It's a very like touching scene where like, oh, he gave me gummy bears, and it was so sweet, and I the flavors in my mouth, like, but
Yeah.
uh, just that like sexual metaphor, and I think it
Mm-hmm.
does it in such a, I don't know, like an artistic, classy way, I guess, to where like as a kid, I didn't get it. I didn't understand
Yeah.
it. Like, oh no, this is straight up sexual metaphor, you idiot. Like I just didn't
Yeah.
see it. Um, and so yeah, then they fall in love, and Hansel goes back to um Mother Hedwig and says, we're in love. I'm going to go back to America. So in order for them to leave, East Berlin, Hansel will need a full physical examination, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, oh, but this, yeah, let me backtrack a little. So in this touching scene, Luther and Hansel, they have to leave America, and then Hedwig, the mother, she puts a wig on Hansel's head and says, "Get my passport." It's a simple cut and paste job. To me, like, oh, that's all these metaphors, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so Mother Hedwig is telling, I am going to give you my name. I'm going to give you my identity so that you can leave this place. But in order to do that, you have to go through this surgery. You have to
Yeah.
be mutilated, right? You have to do this
Mm-hmm.
thing. Um, and so then that sets up, we go into, the angry inch. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's really thinking about like, I think a lot of like nature versus nurture, right? Like, oh, did this happen because this is what Hansel wanted? Or
Right.
is it to live as how this person wants to live authentically? You need to do this by order of the state, right? So the
Right.
state has these laws that you have to comply to in order to live your authentic self. So,
Right. And how topical is that right now, right? Like
mm,
the whole movement. I feel like I really like going back and reflecting on this media and kind of remembering this time where it wasn't that it's that it wasn't that trans people didn't exist. It wasn't that gender queer people didn't exist in the 2000s. Obviously they did. It's just we weren't talking about it as much or talking about it in the same way. There weren't as many openly trans people. And now that there are, we it's so much a push to to put people, period, any people, back in boxes, right? Back in these
Hmm.
categorical things that you're talking about, right? Like you can be a trans woman and be too much of a man to to play college sports, but not be enough of a man, you know, to serve in the military right now. Like
Hmm.
what, why? Like what is this box over here? Like you don't get to serve and be openly trans, but you also don't get, you're not, you know, you're not man enough for this box, but you're too much of a man for this box. Like it, yeah, and that, yeah, and that exact type of pressure, right? Those same categorical standards are what we're seeing in that
Hmm.
part of the film. Um,
Yeah. No, I just think of how like that control, like when we think of control, it's to get desired results. So if you set up these
mm-hmm,
boundaries, these guardrails, as you call them, whatever, just because you want to direct people to live a certain way, and
mm-hmm,
so Hedwig had to leave East Berlin, in order to leave, had to have the surgery, gets to America, and it's not what they expected, right? Um,
mm-hmm,
and so Hedwig is living in a trailer, and this is where we have the song "Wig in a Box," and it's uh, Hedwig is not old. Hedwig is very young, but it's already like I look back on where I'm from, look at the woman I've
mm-hmm,
become, and so they're already like they don't know how to like mourn who they were, be who they are now. And their
mm-hmm.
husband, Luther, their first husband, leaves them, just
Right.
leaves them to themselves, right? Um, and so I think this is, where like Hedwig, as we know, to continue is born. So I think when we look at this, you know, piece of work, we think of like, oh, Hedwig as one person, but like there's so many just fragmented personalities, fragmented identities, and
Yes, absolutely.
and just how like and I think John Karen Mitchell did such a great job because it's this one person through different stages of their life, and
Mm-hmm,
you really like, how do we define this, how do we label this, like it's
mm-hmm.
it's Hedwig, right, to me. So it's like I can't like call it uh a certain genre or certain thing. It's a category of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. So then Hedwig is in America, and is that how quickly to between Wig in a Box do we see? Is that Tommy? Is Tommy right after that?
Yeah, so right after, so
Okay.
Wig and Bach establishes that Hedwig is essentially just like a woman in America now. Like, she can wear different wigs, she can be different, people,
Hmm.
and so she just like starts getting a job as like a babysitter, right? And
Hmm.
so she meets Tommy, and Tommy is just this teenage punk, right? And really looking at who Tommy is to me, that is who Hansel wanted to be, right? I
Mm.
have rock music, I have a mom and dad that love me, and Jesus is great, and I think
Hmm.
looking back on, you know, how Hedwig was growing up, like, oh, these were like things that like they were, you know,
Yeah,
was
certainly the American ideal was sold to Hansel through the TV, right? So then,
yeah,
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 kind of seeing that emulated in real time with Tommy is, yeah, a very interesting journey for them.
yeah, and so I think not to like to take it back a little, I want to go back to
Hmm.
Origin of Love because to me that
Oof, yeah.
there's so
Okay,
much,
fair.
yeah, there's so much metaphor and like uh just I guess spirituality, I could say, that's woven into this work. And so if you're not familiar with Origin of Love, it's from Plato's Symposium. So it's when the earth was still flat and the clouds made a fire and mountains stretched up to the sky, sometimes higher, folks roamed the earth like big rolling kegs, right? So we were all just big blobs of people. They had two sets of arms, they had two sets of legs, they had two faces peering out of one giant head, so they could watch all around them as they talked while they read, and they never knew nothing of love. It was before the origin of love. So this idea that these were complete people, they didn't have concept of love because it was just them. There was this,
Hmm.
uh, you know, and so there were three sexes then, one that looked like two men glued up back to back. They were called the children of the sun. And similar in shape and girth were the children of the earth. And they looked like two girls rolled up in one. And then you have the children of the moon. They look like a fork shoved on a spoon. They were part sun, part earth, part daughter, part sun.
Mm.
Origin of love. Okay, so we've established that that sounds pretty great, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
these different three sexes, right? Two men, two women, and then what would be like your heterosexuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but not all was well because the gods grew quite scared of their strength and defiance, and Thor said, "I'm gonna kill them all with my hammer, like I killed the giants." But Zeus said, "No, you better let me use my lightning like scissors, like I cut the legs off the whales and dinosaurs into lizards." So Zeus decided that we have to stop this. This is they've gone too far. Um, and so he grabbed up some bolts, let out a laugh, said, "I'll split them right down the middle." Could have cut them right up in half. So yeah, Zeus is laying his plan. So these
Mm-hmm.
people, they are just hanging out, just living their lives. And then fire shot down from the sky in bolts like shining blades of a knife, and it ripped right through the flesh of the children of the sun, moon, and earth. And some Indian god sewed the wound up into a hole, pulled it round to our belly to remind us of the price we pay. So just then, like explain, like, oh, this our belly button is
Mm-hmm.
because our tether to our other, right?
Yeah.
And so then the god scattered us away. So we're cut, and then the god split us apart. And so essentially, what we are doing now is we are looking for our other half. We are looking for that other person. And
Mm-hmm.
Plato's, and they this text is telling me that, like, oh no, like we understood that it could be homosexual, it could be heterosexual, it could be
Mm-hmm.
something that we quite don't understand.
Yeah.
Um, and so then, like, to sum it all up, so now we're searching for our other half, and that's what making love is, right? So we're trying to push ourselves back together. We're trying to make this body whole again. So I think that just is
Mm-hmm.
so essential to understanding this piece is that that is the origin of love. Everything is built off of that. So we
Yeah.
go back to, Hedwig now has Tommy. Is this that person? Is this that other half that I had been
Mm-hmm.
searching for? So, yeah.
Yeah. Um, and it's interesting too because I think Hedwig is looking for something to, complete her. And you can't really complete somebody else if you yourself aren't complete. And Tommy isn't complete, neither is Hedwig, right? So they're both looking for something to be perfect, and it's not because they're not perfect yet, right? So it kind
Mhm.
of goes back to that, like you can't form a whole if you yourself if your half isn't whole. You're both halves
Mhm.
that with holes in them. You're not going to be complete when you connect, right? So
Yeah, and then, like, so one of the scenes that I really like is, um, so I draw this parallel to, Tommy being the version of Hedwig that could have been, and
mm-hmm.
because Tommy talks about, oh, Adam and Eve, and Tommy has a problem with his dad. So,
Ooh.
so Tommy's like, man, Jesus, his dad, he didn't like him, and then you had, or
Yeah,
he talks
like
about Adam and Eve. So he's like, Adam, he takes the position of Adam. He's like, oh, so God created
yes,
Adam,
Adam.
and then he's gonna take Eve out of Adam, and then Eve's gonna eat the apple. She's gonna gain the knowledge. She's gonna give it to Adam. What's so wrong with that? Like um,
Mm-hmm.
and so as I'm reading this, I'm like, oh, and then he even talks about, like, oh, Hedwig, give me that knowledge. I want you to be my Eve. I want you've seen the world.
Yeah.
You have gone through the transformation. You have something that I don't. So give me that. And so that's what Hedwig does. Tommy Gnosis, that's knowledge. Like
Mm-hmm.
Hedwig dubs that I'm giving you the knowledge. And so again, like this
Mm-hmm.
idea of transference, like, oh, like I can give something to you based upon like the person that I am. I can
Right.
change who you are.
Yeah.
But of course, Tommy just takes it, right? Doesn't show any appreciation to
Nope. Just
who came before him, who invented it, right? Uh,
mm-hmm.
and so I just feel like I see, like, oh, like then we have this appropriation, right? Like, oh, Tommy,
Right.
Tommy literally just steals from a trans woman, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yes, and it works as it would, of course, right? Like, yeah, take all of the lyrics that this trans woman has written and make them your own because you can, like as a cis man, why not? Like, yeah.
yeah, and so part of the in the stage production, it's always set up that Tommy is performing at a stadium right outside the theater. So when you do the
Mm.
stage show, they want you to like localize it, right? And
Mm.
so you really kind of just see this like parallel between Tommy and Hedwig, Hedwig and Tommy, and
Mm-hmm.
it eventually comes to a head when Hedwig is caught with Tommy, and there's a tabloid sensation. They were in a car accident together, and so Tommy Knox is with, you
Mm-hmm.
know, transsexual, and
Mm-hmm.
that was
Transsexual prostitute is what the headline says in the movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like and so like and then of course like at this time that would be the end of his career, right? This would
Mm-hmm.
like that is a reality that we accepted, and we're like, oh well, yeah, that's right. He should be canceled forever officially, uh, be
Mm-hmm.
um, and
What a
not
what
because he
a
stole from Hedwig, but because he
yeah,
was with her, you know?
yeah, what a freak. Exactly.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, and then I guess we've covered so much ground. We've covered so much ground.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you've done a very excellent job of highlighting some really important scenes and not, I mean, you've held yourself back. You haven't gone to a play-by-play of everything that happened in the movie. So there's still lots of good scenes to surprise anybody that hasn't seen it yet. Um, but yeah, I mean, like you said, so the the ending scene is incredibly powerful and also like something that I think to really break down, you probably have to have seen it multiple times because there's so many moving pieces and that ending scene. Um, you have Hedwig taking off the wig and passing on the persona to I'm gonna say that name wrong again. Yishtik?
Yitzhak.
Yitzhak. Yeah, so
Yitzhak.
you see Hedwig taking off the wig and passing it on, and then you see that actress that was playing a role in drag then transform into a woman, and so that's that kind of trans moment for her, and that scene that storyline, that gender storyline kind of coming to a close, and you see Tommy, you see Hedwig stripped down, mimicking Tommy's gender performance at the end, and it's just all of these little threads of like what does that mean, right?
hmm
And I read that John Cameron Mitchell has said like at the end of the story, the interpretation should be that it's queer, and that's all you need to know.
Mm.
Like like it's not
Yeah.
about like converting back from being trans, it's about the gray that was always there,
Well,
basically.
yeah, and just like even like so the Midnight Radio, going to the lyrics, um, you know, I really like this because, thinking about the importance of music, uh Stephen Trask and John Cameron Mitchell really get like calling out icons. I love calling out our icons, the
Mm-hmm.
lyrics at Midnight Radio. Here's to Patty and Tina and Yoko, Aretha and Nona and Nico and me. So like
Mm-hmm.
lay identifying all these, women of rock as, what you could say would be his, masculine gender performance, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then putting themselves right there as well, like
Mm-hmm.
and me. So I think again, to me, that was my interpretation of it is that the we can play with gender performance with our outer look, and we can also play with it with how we're feeling on the inside. But it's all that matters is how we feel, how
Mm-hmm.
we see ourselves in relation, um, and just how can we? What I take away from that is just how can I continue to just be like Hedwig, right? To
Yeah.
live in my rock star confidence, no matter what the world throws my way. Um, I really think Hedwig is very like prototype Lady Gaga. Like, I'm gonna put on a blonde wig and I'm going to be a rock star. Like, oh, then
That's
that's yeah,
yeah.
that
Mm-hmm.
became like that was I don't know if she was inspired by that, but I think if you think about like this idea of fame, like in order to have that
Mm-hmm.
fame, I need to put on the blonde wig and then I
Mm-hmm.
can be the rock star. So that's what I think about with that.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting, right? Like, yeah, Lady Gaga, what an interesting persona. Like, and what a great parallel, and just in general too, with gender as a performance, because that's not like Lady Gaga isn't who she is. it is a persona. It is part of who she is now. And more, it's become blended. But I think when she first started doing Lady Gaga, it was almost this near um, drag queen experience where it was
Mhm.
like she would put on these outrageous outfits and perform and then kind of back away from that. Similar to the modern diva, Miss Chaperone, right?
Mhm.
She's very much like Chaperone is the performance identity. My real identity is over here. Like, leave my real identity alone, which is fair. And so we see it's interesting that you bring that up because we do see that kind of separation of who you are as a performer being emulated even now, even regardless of the gender of the person, right? Like there's this persona that you put on when you become a rock star.
Yeah, and I think that's a very it's a queer experience, I think, to deal with persona because you have to think about how am I perceived in this environment. And so I think for me, like a Hedwig or a Lady Gaga is like the inevitable conclusion to where, oh, I have a manifestation of a persona that I can slip in and out of. I can take the wig on and off. I can put it back in the box. But I can, it's playing with people's perceptions also because I think, when thinking about Lady Gaga, she created a narrative about herself just by existing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we do a lot of that heavy lifting of like filling in the gaps. Like, when Gaga first came out, there was a Christina Aguilera even shaded her about possibly being transgender, right?
You're
So,
right.
so she was
And
like literally
yeah.
like she was Hedwigging without even
Mm-hmm.
knowing it, but just this
Right.
idea
And
that
her response to that is such a class act. She's like, I don't care.
she was.
Maybe I do. What if I do have a penis? Like, I love that. Like,
When you want to do a Lady Gaga episode, I'm in.
okay.
Because I really like she's my peer, I say. And I just remember
That's
when
so
she
factual. Yeah,
yeah,
she is
yeah.
literally our peer.
She's
Yeah.
literally up here. And so I just remember like I was at Creighton at the time when like she started coming around and I was like telling her, I'm like, oh no, she's the one. Like you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of things like that where I'm like, do you see how what she said? How she that's how I think. That's
Yeah.
what we should say if someone were to, you know, and I think it's because I grew up with Hedwig. I understood this
Mm-hmm.
idea that uh what would it matter? Do you like the music? Are you bopping along? Are you singing along? Like why do we need to try to, hurt someone in that way?
Yeah.
Um so yeah, I think yeah, Lady Gaga's Hedwig. That is my conspiracy theory. So
Sure. That's it.
actually,
Okay.
John Kerr Mitchell, Stephanie Germanotta as Hedwig as Lady Gaga is
I think too, I want to take a moment. I don't know why this just kind of popped in my head. Um, because I haven't always been as hip as I am to the trans cause. I like to take ownership of how much I was not an ally because partially because I was confused by my own. And I said a lot of things related to how I felt about my own gender identity and performance because I didn't understand my place in the community, right? Like I had all of these, especially at 16, 17, pressures on me to present feminine, right? And I remember I don't remember what we were talking about, but I remember once I wrote down on some like quiz or something like that I was femme, and you were like, "Are you though?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not butch," and you were like, "And like,
oh my gosh.
so but like at that time though, right? And those parallels still exist and they work for people and that's great when it works, but it isn't always about being that limited, right? And so that's why I really adore the word queer because I think it encompasses so much more. And for me, acknowledging that it was a spectrum and playing with the spectrum and performing drag, and then realizing that when performing drag, that was actually closer to how I felt internally, and how I wanted to dress. Like I wasn't buying men's clothes for myself daily and wearing them daily until after I performed drag. I had
Mhm.
already cut my hair short by that point in time, but I was shopping exclusively on the female aisles. And so then after I was like, I need to take a break from the club scene. And then
Uh,
I had all these men's clothing and I was like, you know what?
So can we talk about Tommy Sky? Was that the name?
Tommy Sky, yes. I actually
I
I'll have
remember.
I have some pictures that I can throw in some of the
That's
promo
a
for
whole.
this.
That's we could get into that.
Um, I mean, it's not much. I'm not that great of a dancer, and I joined a drag boy band. And I think if I had just been doing like what I wanted to do, which was just like weird, like my favorite thing that I ever did was I performed the song Little Mary Sunshine from the musical Reefer Madness with a
Yes.
drag queen. And that is
Yes.
like just like I just want to do stupid things like
Hmm.
that. But now as I'm like fully presenting mask most of the time, I'm like, it would almost be more fun and more drag like for me to do female impersonation
Hmm.
because that is
Yes.
so much further from what I present on the daily. So just in that space, right? And like what Hedwig and living through my own adulthood as looking back on how I saw Hedwig living through theirs and how it's informed me
Uh-huh.
as an adult of this place of just like gender is whatever for me. Like,
Absolutely. No, and I think wow, there's so many talking points I have right now. But I say I'm thinking of the idea like uh I remember we went to our first Pride together, right? So I have
mm-hmm.
this very vivid memories of um going like it was I we were 16 at the time and just deciding that oh we're not going to go to the Harry Potter book release, we're going to go to
Yes.
Pride. And so we were on that from day one. We
Yes,
said
we were.
we had a crossroads. It was literally will we join our friends at Barnes and Noble for the midnight book release of Harry Potter 4, or are we going to Gay Pride? Sorry
Mm-hmm.
guys, we're going to Gay Pride. And to me that
Yeah.
again is one of these
I
origin story
remember
moments.
I remember, yes, the two people, Katie and Chris, I could cut that. But the two people that were going were walking away and they were like, have fun, guys, kind of condescendingly. And we were like, have fun at your book party.
Yeah,
like,
what books, like but no, it was definitely it was this that was a I don't know
yes,
a
we
sliding door
chose
moment
gay
where we
culture right
chose, yeah.
there. Yep.
And I remember this was one of the first times that then like I saw like the trans symbol, and there was
Mm-hmm.
a little tent for like trans Nebraskans, and there was probably like one person there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for me that was the first moment I was like, oh okay, I see how this is in relation to this in relation to this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I will definitely say like mainstream culture, popular society didn't accept that and still hasn't. But just like
No.
I remember I'm going then jumping ahead in the timeline.
Mm-hmm. You're okay.
Like I think of Project Runway, Christian Siriano. There was an SNL skit where Amy Poehler is playing Christian Siriano, and it's hey tranny, like it's just that. Like that was
Yeah.
how people like talked like that for like a solid like year. We were just like,
Yeah.
oh, Teasler, Teasler, Teasler,
Yeah.
and I remember thinking like this is like this feels weird, and just
Yeah. Like
yeah, that was
why take the phrase hot mess and add the word tranny in the middle other than just to be ridiculously transphobic? Like there's no reason.
yeah, and it wasn't coming from a place of like understanding or appreciation. It was just othering, and
Yeah.
just like oh, just that sketch is just like embedded in my like it's in my brain because I was at Creighton watching with my roommates, and like it was queer culture. It's like oh, this is queer culture. Like no, actually, this is not what I think it should be. Uh, it's a
Right. Well,
um,
and we were such on the bubble then, right? So much of Gay2k is like exposure is exposure, and at least they're talking about it. But then like looking back now, it's like, but would have been better if they didn't talk. Like, wouldn't we still have survived? And then we wouldn't have these like it's Pat, right? Talking about SNL. What the heck was it's Pat? Like that is probably one of the most damaging like for any non-conforming person, especially if they're mask presenting and in a female body
yeah.
to
Well, I will say I've seen like again, like I think this thing everything like it shifts and it moves and evolves. Like I'm seeing like people are circling back around to it because again of this idea of representation at different times, and like how
mm-hmm,
I think people should be forgiving of how they represent others. Like I just be like, "Oh wait, actually that was kind of messed up. Here's like here's what we can extract from that."
mm-hmm,
I think about like just queer presentations where it's like Bugs Bunny in a dress, right? Like to me that like we can look at it as problematic, but as a kid, he's wearing a pretty wig and he's being limp-wristed. He's sashaying. So it's just like these were
Right.
attributes and
Mm-hmm.
qualities that like I didn't want. Like I was relentlessly bullied as like a little kid because of
Mm.
just my feminine nature. And so I took, you know, power of like, oh, my cartoons, I could be Bugs Bunny and no one will give a fuck. Like
Yeah, right. And then that's where that, and I think we both have this that I'm a comic shield, right? Like
mm,
look, I adapted comedy because I had to, right?
yeah,
It comes from a place of survival where we're funny because it's always more palatable to be this otherness if it's funny.
yeah, yeah,
Um
yeah.
and
I think laughter is the best medicine, as they say. So yeah, I think, um, but no, I'm just really like thankful to be at a time in my life and my existence that like all my gay dreams have come true. Like literally, like the person that I was at, 16 that came out, like could not imagine the lifestyle that I live now, or just the things that I'm a part of and the friends that I have. And
Mhm.
it's because I didn't go to the Harry Potter book release.
Yeah. Man, if we would have ditched Pride and gone to the Harry
Oh,
Potter
that
book
would
release,
timelines
our
would
whole, yeah.
honestly like, oh man. Um, but yeah, I think that's part of just
I
uh
think too, because of where we were, um, kind of getting pushed and then being used to being in the queer spotlight because we had to be, at that young age when we would go to Pride and there was like, like 12 other people there and we were the only people that were out at our school.
mhm.
Yes, there were other queer people, but before us, they weren't really fully out. They might have been out to some of their friends, but like we were like the tokens in our school and like started a whole movement, right?
Well,
Like,
no, because I think we intentionally tried to integrate so where it was, you know, and I unfortunately like I can think of, classmates that were also queer, but they dropped out or they like disengaged or they were
mm-hmm.
bullied so much they couldn't be a part of school. And
Yeah.
I just really thankful for your friendship to where we could like do that together and then eventually like that's how everyone else kind of joined our orbit and um like it's just funny because people who weren't even gay were like gay for a minute, like
Boy, howdy. Yep,
yeah,
that was a
like
whole thing for sure.
I'm talking about multiple people, right? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. No, absolutely.
But I think
Um,
that's I and that's that kind of spirit I think I've been able to like with the work that I do like the project Queer Night that I started is kind of just that where it's oh this is a group of friends and like actually you just might be gay for a night, that's okay, you don't have to
I've
you
never interpreted queer night as that, but I love that it's just like come here for a night, explore yourself, and then leave if you want to. That's cool.
see it oh my goodness like that's
I'm
I
sure
just
it happens. I just have never interpreted it. Like I've never
yeah
spent the time to think about like, yeah,
yeah
that's awesome.
and I think that's like sexuality is play, like literally, like it's,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's, there's many different aspects of that. And, um, I think it's also just about like creating that inclusive, comfortable environment and that I don't know, I experienced that through my friendship in high school and that kind of informed the person that I am to cultivate these spaces and to,
Mm-hmm.
be a leader for the community in the ways that, work for me.
Yeah. Um, and it's interesting too to see like, like we just talked about Pride. It's so funny to see how much Pride has changed. Like, I mean, granted, like, okay, it's been 20 years and the whole country has changed, but it was like literally like a tent on in a street, or was it in the Flicks parking lot? It was a tent somewhere, and it was
It
just
was,
like
yeah.
4 or 5, like, tables on either side, and like then there was like a little stage. And now it's like, for those of you in Omaha that know this, it is like this massive corporate swag shindig that you actually have to pay, what is it, like 20 something bucks to even
$25.
get in the door, and the parade is 2.5 hours long, and half of the parade is just corporate sponsorships. So then the flip side of that is you have these like smaller community prides popping up, right? Like the Benson First Fridays Pride was kind of an example of that, of a neighborhood hosting a pride event, which was huge. Like as you know.
We did that. Yeah, no. No, it's just think like no, yeah, I again that formative memory of it was, behind the Max. And so and that's the thing about like
behind the Max. Okay, I was like, it was behind something, but behind the Max makes more sense.
and I just think about like, oh no, gay people have always been here, queer people have always been here. It's just, if the smaller the communities are, the more like possibly secretive it might be, and I think and Pride is that time when you shouldn't have to live in secret. I think
Mm-hmm.
we to me, Pride is that, exemplifying that ideal of you can live as yourself all the time, authentically. And
Mm-hmm.
so, just unfortunately, in the way like our society works, we have to maybe make a declaration of it. We have to make an announcement of it. We have to have a ritual gathering so that we spread this idea of, hey, what if you did it every day? What if you,
Mm-hmm.
followed your, North Star and you were the person that you want to be? And
Mm-hmm.
wow, I'm going back to that first Pride. Like probably the first time I did see a drag queen officially was at that Pride.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so because I don't really you asked like, oh, when do you could you think about when you saw your first, drag or trans performer? I was like, it's been a part of my DNA. I don't know. Like,
Right. Yeah. I don't remember. Like, I'm trying to think of like if there was something before that Pride. Um, and I can't, like, there's no way, not in real life. I'm like, where would I have been? Um, yeah.
do you
So,
remember
yeah, it
it's
had
like,
to
can we
have
talk about
been.
that? Like just wasn't it a softball player? What was her name? Do you remember that?
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I think that the what was queer dating before, like,
Oh
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that could be a whole ass podcast.
Teasers. We're just dropping teasers. We're dropping teasers.
Yeah, but yeah, like Plan It Out, I think we met on a message board,
Oh my
and
God. Planet. Oh my God.
she yeah, she came with her ex-girlfriend, and I think it was literally like looking back on it, I'm like, okay, I was used as just like a prop to be like, oh hey, like I could probably get with this 16-year-old girl. But if you want to make out instead, and that was fine. I mean, like, whatever, like they were two hot chicks and they wound up making out like right in front of me while like half touching me. Like that was my first
Oh.
Pride. Like what? Like
You could have been at Barnes and Noble reading about
I could have been not
Harry
even.
Potter.
We would have still been just sitting on the floor at Barnes and Noble. We wouldn't even been doing anything. That was the stupidest part to me. It was like, yo, we're going there 5 hours early, and it's like,
For
no,
what? Yeah.
like I'm gonna go over here.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Could have been at Barnes and Noble, sitting on the floor waiting for one book.
Instead, you decided to be gay and look at your life now. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Woo. Oh man. And what's crazy is there are those peoples every day that live and live perfectly happy, who would be like, gay's not my personality. Like it's just like this sub part of me, and like so they would have made the decision to go to Barnes and Noble because their their culture isn't about lifting up gay culture
hmm
and queer happiness, right? There it's just like, oh, gay is just like this small part of me, and like I don't have any hatred towards those people. It's just like such a weird lifestyle for me to think about, because like when people are like, oh, you can be gay and it not be political, I'm like, nah.
Well,
Like,
and I think definitely like as a teen, like grappling with all that and what it means to like not only accept that you are LGBTQ, but then to like live as it and to own it and to represent it. Um,
yeah.
I remember I go back to like the day of silence. Like we could go in on high school, and that was really hard for me to participate in because and just looking back and like I can like why did I have such a hard time with it? For me is I've always been in positions where as a kid I had to be stronger than the adults. I had to
Uh-huh.
lead the way, like and that made me uncomfortable. And so like as an adult now, I see that and I'm like, I don't ever want to have to put a youth in a position to where they need to be the ambassador. They need to be the strong one in the
Hmm.
room. I'm like, to me, that's not being an adult. That's not like
Yeah.
actually showing care. And so
Dude,
like,
yeah, we won't dwell on Day of Silence because that also could be a whole episode. But it's not even that like we had to be the ambassadors and they're adults that were capable of being ambassadors. They were adults that were straight up antagonists against us during the Day of Silence. I had a physics teacher or chemistry teacher my junior year like stand right by my desk and say, "Wow, I wish you guys would do the Day of Silence more often. You're really quiet." Like,
yeah, no, it's real.
excuse me.
We're gonna name names, South High. Watch out. No.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's definitely that no, that's it's wild, it's bizarre, and as after I graduated, finding out some of the things that like people did say or how they reacted, like I do have to give credit to some educators and teachers who shielded me from that, who
Yes.
didn't um I'm gonna get emotional about that because it's just like, oh, there were people who did care and they did keep it secret because there were
Mhm.
assholes who were actively working against gay kids just because they were existing, just
Yeah. We
because.
were so lucky to have the allies that we did that were adults for sure, because there are people who didn't have those people in their corner.
Oh yeah, and
And
just how easy it would be to just like, oh, if everyone agreed that the gay kids sucked, okay, well then let's make them stop. You know what I mean? Like
mhm.
how easy it would have been to just not let us, uh, kiss our partners in the hallway because everyone else was. Like
Yeah.
it was a public school. We know what kids were doing in the bathrooms, and you're not doing anything about it. But me holding my boyfriend's hand in the hallway, that is cause for expulsion. Wow,
Mm.
like get your
Yeah.
lives together.
Mhm.
And so that was real, and it's like that again, like I don't know, I'm very grateful for the experiences because I don't when I think of like what I don't want people to go to, it's not necessarily that like, oh, they need to I want to create a world where people can be just like me. I'm like, no, I want to create a world where people are safe and there is that room for them to be themselves. And so,
Right.
like how do
Yeah.
we foster that?
Right. Well, and I know you would agree with me on this. Like the world that we existed in then, it doesn't exist now, right? For better and worse. There are things that have changed that it was, mostly all for better, and then recently it's gotten a little bit for worse. But like we can't go back and be the people we needed at 16 because the kids today don't need that person. They don't need a person who can just tell them that it's okay to be who they are. They need us. They need us talking about our lives. They need
Mm,
us being present and physical and representations. They need to be able to see a woman with a butch haircut in a grocery store with another woman, right?
yeah.
Like actually as partners, right? They need to be able to see us physically in spaces. And yeah, it's
No,
pretty
yeah,
crazy.
it's the little things, and I think that's as humans we look to others and to model our own, lives and behaviors off of, and we should all be comfortable to be ourselves so that, we can show others it's comfortable to be themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've been gay my whole life. I've been gay longer. Like, yeah, I got that point where I'm like, oh, I came out at 16
Yeah, out of
and
the
now
closet longer
I,
than you were in the closet.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, yep.
So that's where it's wild, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's Gay2k.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, luckily whatever happened in the 2Ks happened, because that's whatever happened then made it possible for us to exist now and do the things we do. So,
Yeah, just that turn again. I think of that turn of the century. This is, we should not be like we were a century ago, and that the early 2000s, I think, laid foundational groundwork that we can continue to build upon.
mm-hmm, for sure. John Paul, it's been so much fun having you, like just
Oh my
catching
gosh, I
up and
know.
just in general. Absolutely, we're going to do this again. Thanks for listening today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed our chat about Hedwig. I loved chatting with John Paul about it. I hope to have him back again soon as a guest as we continue to explore Gay2k. As always, check us out on Insta, TikTok, wherever you want to find me. I'm out there. And you can hear other full episodes on YouTube and Spotify. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.